Hello and welcome to this edition of Planet Hope here on France 24, the programme dedicated to the UN Millennium Development Goals. Now imagine a world where pollution is so bad that you can see it in the air, the water and soil. This week we're in China looking at environmental sustainability, and for some this dark and poisonous world is a reality. Our correspondents met up with one family team who worked tirelessly to find those responsible. They're part of a non-governmental organisation who takes samples to monitor the pollution levels in the area and try and educate and advise the polluters. They are making progress, but money is tight and pressure is mounting.
Living in a state of perpetual twilight, the residents of Wangung consider it something of a miracle if they make it to old age. A cancer village, as they're called in China, rates here are 3 times the national average, and everyone is affected. This man's face distorted by tumours. This woman, now without her daughter, who died aged just 22.
She died in 2008. She developed several tumours. They weren't painful or itchy, but we took her to hospital to have some tests. It turned out she had cancer of the lymph nodes.
The pollution's terrible. Everyone in their 30s and 40s has diseases. How do you explain that? It has to be the terrible pollution here. We're surrounded by it.
The pollution affects everything: the air, the water, the soil. For years, the villagers would get their water from wells, but now that's not safe, with nearby industry along the Huai River having a major impact on people's lives.
There are 3 chemical factories over there. One produces fertilizer. They release their wastewater straight into the canal. Just take a look. It's so black. It's obvious. It's all because of the polluted water from the factories.
Despite the pollution, food is grown less than a metre from the bank. People still need to eat. Home to heavy industry and many dams, the Huai is one of the most polluted rivers in China, and yet 100 million people still rely on its water for their daily lives. People like the Zhengs, who have no choice but to make use of the river as they can't afford to buy purified water.
The water we drink comes from this machine. That pumps it straight out of the ground. We boil it before drinking. And let me show you something.
Boiling the water reduces the risk of disease, but there are other hazardous elements to deal with, other than microbes. Tests carried out on the Huai River have found the presence of large amounts of heavy metals, and yet the Zhengs have no choice but to use the water every day to feed their 2 children.
I hope they can make the water cleaner, make our children and the old people healthy. After all, the children are the hope of our country. Please make it happen.
For many, though, saving this river has already become a lost cause. 300 kilometres upstream in Henan province, people are now a little more optimistic. Huo Daishan is the founder of the NGO Huai River Guardians. A photojournalist by trade, he has spent his life travelling along the river and is all too aware of the ecological tragedy that has been unfolding.
We got these fish from the Huai River. The genes have mutated, and it causes many deformities. This one doesn't have proper gills. This other one only has one eye.
Huo is now a full-time pollution hunter. The day has just started when he receives his first phone call.
Can you see the end of the pipe causing the pollution?
Somebody has spotted a contaminated area of the river 10 kilometres away, and Huo must move quickly if he's to catch the polluter red-handed.
Okay, let's go.
Protecting the river is a family affair. Huo's 2 sons also work for the NGO and often go into the field with him.
We're now heading to the Fuma Canal. There are dead fish, and there's black water there. Yes, the black water is back.
The dead fish were found near a factory producing MSG, and a local farmer alerted the association, one of the hundreds of volunteers who monitor the river.
Where does this fish come from?
From the small river down there.
Okay, let's go check it.
After some quick evidence taking and a little acrobatics, samples are taken. They'll be sent to a laboratory in the city, but the thousands of fish floating on the surface are not causing Huo too much concern.
This is actually caused by waste corn that has fallen into the river. When the corn rots, it reduces the oxygen in the water and the fish die. This isn't caused by a factory.
It may seem like a noble cause to be fighting, but Huo's campaign to protect the river has upset some, and he's received 2 beatings for his troubles from thugs likely hired by his opponents. However, there are moments that make it all worthwhile. A manager from the MSG factory comes down to talk to Huo and even invites the team to check out his company's waste recycling facilities. 5 years ago, Huo convinced them not to release their wastewater directly into the river anymore.
They used to release 1,200 tons of waste every day. At first, we protested. And then we moved on to negotiations to tackle the pollution problem together. We got them to reach national standards first, then encouraged them to go further.
Monitoring, educating and advising local companies and the authorities is exhausting work, but Huo is starting to see the fruits of his labour. Dozens of heavy polluting companies have shuttered their factories in recent years, and on the river shores, fishermen look happier.
Before, the water was terrible. We had nothing. But now it's getting better. The fish are coming back and we can eat them.
But the path to a pollution-free river is a long one. Having investigated one potential problem, Huo is now alerted to another.
This is Mr. Wang. He's been cycling along these rivers for years searching for pollution. He's a good example of the public involvement we need.
The source of the pollution comes from a pipe under the road, but it's not industrial waste that's flowing into the river here.
I think it must have come from a pig farm upstream. Otherwise, you wouldn't have this gloop flowing like this.
Effluent from pig farms is a big source of pollution in China, but in confronting the problem, Huo resorts to small-hand tactics.
We have a basic strategy. First, we look around for problems. Then we focus on these problems, we collect evidence and concentrate on the areas where there are problems. We explain them that resources are in the wrong place. If you release manure into the river, it's pollution, but if you release it in a field, it's fertilizer.
The Huai River is so heavily polluted that contaminated soil along its course will be a threat to people's health for decades to come. There are many problems facing Huo and his team, and he prefers to tackle the biggest problems first and shows us his proudest achievement. Today, Huo and his team are inspecting the water purification system they installed in this village.
It's very good. 500 people rely on this purifier, a whole village.
The polluted water is turned into safe drinking water. The process is 100% natural and no chemicals are used.
There are 3 containers in total. In the first, there are rocks, charcoal and other natural filtering materials. After the bioreaction in the first container, the water goes into the second one, where a more comprehensive filtering process takes place. And then it enters the third container, where it is stored. As you can see, the water is clean.
The purification process takes 6 hours, providing the most vulnerable with safe drinking water.
How's the water? Good.
Adults in the village come once a day on average to fill their buckets.
Before, the water had stuff in it, but not now. This water is good for your body, for your health.
Thanks to Huo, 22 villages in the region now have these water purification systems. Each one costs €3,000 to build, which was financed with money that Huo received from an international award in 2010. However, the money has now run out.
We now have no money left, so we have had to stop the project. These machines are cheap, easy to maintain, and fit in well in the Chinese countryside. If we had more money, we could replicate this project elsewhere, to many places like the whole Huai River and 7 other river regions in China.
A lack of money and government pressure are common difficulties facing environmental activists in China, but at least they can now rely on more manpower, with increasing numbers of people becoming concerned over the risks to their health from pollution and how it will affect the next generation. More than a third of Chinese children now have high levels of lead in their blood.
Well, that wraps up this edition of Planet Hope. Don't forget, you can watch this programme again and all our other reports by logging onto our website. That's france24.com, france24.com. We'll be back soon with another edition. Until then, thanks for watching and goodbye.